Welcome, everybody, to Watershed Talks. My name is Christine Curry, and I am the outreach coordinator of the state division of the Iowa Izaak Walton League. And Dale Braun, our president, is on with us this evening. Chris Henning is a board member and affiliated with several other organizations as well. And I just she's co-hosting this evening with us. And we'd like to welcome our guest, Lynne Diebel. She's an author, paddler, and clean water advocate. And Dan Haug, water quality specialist / scientist with the Prairie Rivers of Iowa. And this evening, we're going to be talking about paddlers, pollution, and policy, and how the Clean Water Act set a goal of achieving water quality that would protect recreation and aquatic life in the nation's waters by 1983. 40 years later, rivers downstream of wastewater treatment plants are much more improved, but still fall short of these goals. This evening, we're going to take a deeper dive into the Upper Mississippi watershed and take a look at Bad Fish Creek in Wisconsin and the South Skunk River in Iowa to have a better understanding of how the Clean Water Act works, what's working, and how citizens can get involved to protect their favorite paddling and fishing spots. So Lynne Diebel has written several books. She's also the director of the Friends of Bad Fish Creek Watershed, a chapter of Rock River Coalition, and she will go into a little bit more detail. Dan Haug has been the water quality specialist for Prairie Rivers of Iowa. It's a Ames-based nonprofit since 2017. In addition to working on watershed projects, environmental education, mapping, and water quality monitoring, he has recently completed a series of 45 short videos about the Clean Water Act, and we're going to share that link again. So without further ado, I'll let Dan and Lynne get started. And then Dale, do you have any quick announcements that you'd like to make before we get started, or you want to say a few things at the end?
I'll save it till the end, Christine.
Okay, great. Then we will, without further ado, we'll get started. So take it away, Dan and Lynne. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen here and um, bear with me because it always I got two screens here and I'm never sure which one is showing. Do you have the presenter view or do I need to switch them again?
You need to switch them again.
Okay.
It's not the full screen.
Yeah. Um, how about now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay,
Good.
great. Yeah, so my organization is, we're not usually, we don't lobby at the Capitol. We're not doing lawsuits. We tend to work with county conservation and with farmers on projects, conservation projects in the Ames area, Story, Boone, and Hamilton County especially. But I'm always coming across terms from the Clean Water Act, and last year, well, I guess it was October 2022 was the 50th anniversary of the Clean Water Act, and I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to kind of dig into some of that, and I was learning myself, and sharing as I learned. So I did this series of short videos, like each of them are a minute and a half long, and we put them out on Instagram and on YouTube. 50 years, 50 facts. Learned a lot in the process, and one of the things I realized is that it's really important for people who enjoy the outdoors to be aware of this, because one of the goals of the Clean Water Act was fishable, swimmable waters. And of course, the deadline that they set was a little bit too ambitious. but you know, this idea of fishable and swimmable is part of the assessment process, designated uses and impaired waters, and so, you know, if you value, if you're concerned about fishing, if you like paddling rivers, good to know about this. The other part of the Clean Water Act is, you know, set a goal of eliminating discharge of pollution, and there was a permit system to do that. And so a lot of the Clean Water Act focuses on, you know, regulation of factories and of sewage treatment plants. And, you know, I find that sometimes these things can sort of get divorced from each other, or they move with their own logic. And so, you know, uh, uh, a city might be spending a lot of money to improve their wastewater treatment system, and, you know, theoretically to improve water quality in the river, but maybe people aren't talking to each other. So I think it's really important for people who value recreation and on rivers to get involved with this and make sure that um, uh, to make sure that these processes are actually you know, improving those things that we value. And I'm an Ames native and had a chance to move back recently for this job after several years in Wisconsin, and I found that sort of to illustrate and help to clarify all these kind of legal and technical terms, I'd look for local examples. And one of the things I found is that the Skunk River that flows through Ames is actually probably the most the river in Iowa that's most impacted by regulated point sources of pollution, wastewater treatment plants. And so, you know, this picture is the outfall of the Ames wastewater treatment plant. And so, you know, there's normally a pretty steady flow, about 12 cubic feet per second. You know, and certain times a year, you know, so at the time I took this picture, you know, there was only 50 cubic feet per second in the river. So a big fraction of the water was coming from treated effluent. You know, we've been doing water monitoring, and during a drought, you could really see the influence for certain things. So, you know, the effluent, there's a lot of things that they treat, but not everything. So I really started kind of getting to understand, very curious about how wastewater treatment works and what they're required to do. One of the other examples I used in this video series was Badfish Creek in Wisconsin, and I knew a little bit about that because from my studies, that's a creek that gets effluent from the city of Madison, or the Madison Metro Sewage District. When I had a chance to visit it, I was just impressed at what a beautiful place it was. So you know, we had some conversations going, reached out to Lynne and thought that these two water bodies would be a great case study to understand a little bit more about how the Clean Water Act works, what's you know, and sometimes what isn't working. So we'll get to some I won't do too many slides. We'll get to some more kind of conversation, but I want to start by getting you oriented to these two rivers. So the South Skunk River joins the Skunk River joins the Mississippi near Burlington, Iowa. I just got off it. I actually was on Project Aware doing a trash cleanup, and so it's a good thing we're doing this on Zoom, so you don't have to smell me because I haven't had a chance to to shower yet. But it's a beautiful river down there. That was the first time I'd been on that stretch. I'm mostly up on the upper reaches of the South Skunk River. It starts in Hamilton County and flows through my hometown of Ames. And then Badfish Creek, which Lynne will tell you more about in a minute, south of Madison, joins the Yahara River, flows into the Rock River, and then joins the Mississippi River near the Quad Cities. So just to get you oriented, this is the South Skunk River. It's the section through Story County is now a water trail. With nice brochures and signage, and I think 15 improved access points. And so it's the 34 mile stretch in Story County is a a water trail. I think I just figured out that the whole you could potentially paddle some 200 miles from Story City down to the Mississippi, but I'll focus um, on this stretch. And upstream of Ames, it's uh, fairly narrow channel and wooded. Um, there's a kind of a green belt district, so a lot of the riparian area has been protected. Downstream of Ames, the river was channelized. Um, but it's so the character is a little bit different, but still a very fun paddle. I've seen a lot of wildlife when I've been out there. There's you can even get some white water. This is Soper's Mill, where an old mill dam was washed out, and in other places we've people have worked to deliberately remove or modify low head dams that were a safety hazard. So the one on the left is in Ames. The one on the right is in Story City. The Story City project was one of the first low head dam modifications in the state. But since then, it's had some damage to it, so I think it needs rehabilitation before you'd be able to go through it. But pretty cool that we're increasingly opening up that waterway for fish passage and to be able to paddle it safely. Here's an overhead view of that low head dam. The Skunk River is a smallmouth bass fishery. And home to some threatened mussel species. And we've had a chance to fish some of those out in advance of construction projects. It does have some problems, some bank erosion. Just this spring, when we had that unseasonably warm February, we also got a cyanobacteria bloom, that blue-green algae, so it looked like St. Patrick's Day and early in Ames for a day, and then it dissipated. And I was just on a trash cleanup in the Lower Skunk River, but we've had a lot of efforts by the Skunk River Navy. My organization has helped organize 5 trash cleanups, so there's a lot of there is a lot of trash in the river, but a lot of people working on good stewardship of the river. So that's just a little introduction to the Skunk River, and let me turn it over to Lynne to introduce Badfish Creek.
Hi, Badfish Creek is a little creek. It's a natural creek which has been augmented by the Madison Metro Sewerage District's flow, so that it's about 50% effluent and 50% natural flow. But it starts, the natural part of the creek starts in the little village of Oregon, Wisconsin, and that's the Oregon branch of the Badfish, which then picks up the ditch, which comes from over a height of land from the Metropolitan Sewerage District, and brings its flow in. And then it meets what's called the Rutland branch, which is a trout stream. And the combined flow of those three is the Badfish proper. It flows for about 22 miles. And it is about 19 of those miles people paddle year round, since the warm water from the effluent keeps the stream running. And it's extremely popular for people in Dane County to paddle. And we had a trail cam on the river during the pandemic, and during one 7-month period, we recorded over 2,000 boats passing by, and that was just one segment of the stream, because we have a couple of canoe landings that we've built up there to make access without having people climb down next to a bridge, which is usually kind of rough. So can you switch a slide? Yeah, so our group started in 2007, and we basically are the friends of the creek. We want it to be a healthier creek. We're a chapter of the Rock River Coalition, which makes us able to not have to focus on doing the 501c3 work, and focus on being improvers of the water quality. And we've had some influential studies that we've done. We found out that the E. coli levels in the creek were too high to meet recreational standards. And we partnered with the Rock County Health Department to do a 2-year study of sampling of 5 sites on the creek and 2 on the Yahara River into which it flows. And we sampled them for E. coli levels, but we also did microbial source tracking, which uses DNA fragments in the water, which indicate whether or not the E. coli came from humans or from ruminants. And it was overwhelmingly showed that the E. coli and the bad fish were from humans. And that meant that the 2 sewerage districts, the one in Madison and then the one in Oregon, were the source.
Lynn, I think I do have that slide in here. Should I skip ahead to that?
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, this is a paddling map that we have online. This is one of the landings, and here we have.
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to find that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're
Okay, there you go.
there we go.
All right, so the microbial source tracking was our tool for putting some pressure on not just Madison Metro, which was disinfecting with UV 6 months of the year per the state statutes. But we also wanted to put some pressure on Oregon, which for reasons that are probably lost in history, didn't have any disinfection required for its sewage treatment plant. It's a rapidly growing community. So we presented our findings to various groups, including the DNR. And just recently, we found out that the DNR has used our findings to do the draft of a new decision, a new wastewater policy management disinfection requirements for discharges to surface waters. And that they went from saying that, basically we don't know whether there's any evidence that this is from humans or not, to saying that no, we have evidence that 20 miles downstream of an undisinfected outfall, that you can still find too much E. coli. And so that was a big success for our group. And it was that we felt that, that this is what we're working toward, is doing the things that we can as citizens do to influence a DNR that is receptive. They also, a DNR with our testimony about the number of people who use the creek, changed the permit from Madison Metro for having disinfection 6 months of the year to 9 months of the year. And that was in after our testimony and the testimony of some other of Rock County Health Department. So I feel very strongly about citizens getting involved and that they can make a difference if they go about it right.
Yeah, and then I think you had the other. This was the microbial source tracking piece, so showing that it was humans and not livestock.
Yeah, that's the bacteroides that's the term that they use about the DNA fragments that show that it is definitely humans. And there's livestock along. It's a rural stream, runs almost exclusively through rural land, which is one of the big appeals. There is so much wildlife, and there's such a sense of being out away from the urban centers that that's why people like it so much. Plus the water is clear because a lot of it's effluent, and it's not, does not have a lot of the turbidity that other streams in southern Wisconsin have.
Should I go back to the pictures of people paddling, or?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be very nice. Thank you. Oh, that was part of our,
Oh.
if you go back that one, well, here, okay, there's the citizen science. This is some of our hardy samplers, testing the creek in the winter. And the Wisconsin State Lab of Hygiene in Madison was where everything was processed. So we were close by the lab. We didn't have to go very far to get the samples where they belonged. And you can go to the slides of the paddlers as well, if you would, please. Yeah. So there are days in the summer when you'll just see a sort of a flow of kayakers and the occasional canoe going down the Badfish. The Badfish, as I said before, runs into the Yahara River, and the Yahara is the lower Yahara is a really beautiful spot for paddling too. So it's people who are going to make a day of it will put in up around downstream a little downstream of Oregon, and then paddle all the way down the Badfish onto the Yahara and down to a county park, which makes for a full day of paddling. So this is our most recent acquisition, was 3 acres of land, which belonged to Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District, and they didn't use it anymore. It used to be used for launching a weed cutter on the Badfish, but since the water quality has improved since the weed cutting days, it is no longer needed, and so they deeded it over to the town of Rutland. And Rutland allows us to have a canoe launch there, or a canoe and kayak launch. And so that's been a recent project. It's just finishing up, getting things ready for paddlers to use it. There are 2 others that are part of the wildlife area. That's one of the draws of the Badfish as well. The wildlife area has hiking, but it's also got an access point to the creek. And one of our members, Andy Horniman, created this interactive map, which is on the internet, and he describes the characteristics of each access point and gives advice on, what water levels to look for before choosing to paddle the creek. And I don't remember, Dan, what you had next, but
Yeah, that's all the challenge with okay, maybe that was everything. And
yeah, I think it was. Oh,
okay.
yeah, there's the slide about the phosphorus, and you can see that down in the lower section is the Badfish Creek Yahara River reach of the TMDL map, and the phosphorus levels are pretty high in our reach, and they're probably going to go higher because they're going to start pumping. They pump 40 million gallons of effluent a day from Madison Metropolitan, and that includes pumping 3 million gallons a day over into another watershed, which is the Sugar River watershed, and that includes Badger Mill Creek. And this has been a controversial issue. On Thursday night, there's going to be a public hearing about the decision, whether or not they're going to cut off the flow to Badger Mill Creek and put it all into the Badfish. And that's a very long and not very solvable problem that probably isn't worth talking about right now.
Okay. And maybe since it is hard to turn on and off the slides, maybe I'll slow these. I was going to hold these back in reserve, but um, um, we've done some testing around Story County, including um, above and below actually the city of Ames has been testing above and below the wastewater treatment plant on the South Skunk going back um, 20 years or 18 years on a weekly basis. And so there was just this amazing amount of data that now that we've been working with the city of Ames and Story County on water monitoring projects have had access to. And so one of the things that really stands out is the elevated phosphorus levels downstream, because this is something that kind of is in the works, but has not yet been required as part of treatment. And so, typically in most streams, you're usually if you're testing phosphorus, it's usually the low range, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, that you're holding up to the light. There's another set of vials that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so what we found is that upstream of the plant, you're using the low range. Downstream of the plant, you're using the high range, and that's especially true during drought when the water levels are low and the effluent is a larger fraction of the water, the river water. The city of Ames now disinfects uses a UV light to disinfect any bacteria that make it through the treatment process. And so they've had that for since 2015. But a lot of the smaller communities, like the city of Nevada, east of Ames, they weren't yet required to do that. So Nevada is just now building a new wastewater treatment plant. And so one of the things that we found, there's this odd sort of thing that DNR doesn't usually require them to test until after the permit requirement is in place. So often we don't know what the benefit of the technology is. And so one of the things that I found collecting water samples was that that there was just a huge amount of E. coli coming from the Nevada sewage treatment plant, and it was the main source of the bacteria downstream. This was West Indian Creek, one of the smaller tributaries of the South Skunk. But just kind of realizing how big an impact some of the that community wastewater can have if for things that aren't yet treated. So I guess I'll close the slideshow now. Then if I don't know, Christine, if you have questions for.
We had a couple of questions in the chat box.
You want me to read those for us?
Sure, that'd be great, Chris.
Okay. First, Mary Ellen is asking about acronyms STP and WPCF. And I'm not.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so that was just sewage treatment plants, and I think the Ames calls theirs the water pollution control facility. But yeah, these are sewage treatment plants.
Okay. And then Carolyn has one about effluent processing that leads to high E. coli counts unless disinfection takes place. And she said something about leaky wells. Now I missed the leaky wells comment, or maybe that was something that she asked you.
Yeah, so maybe I should kind of step back and explain a little bit about what wastewater treatment does and doesn't do. Would that be helpful?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so yeah, kind of what I've learned is that the most important steps that every wastewater treatment system is going to do is they're going to have some kind of a settling tank that lets the solid material settle out, and often that gets dried and land applied as sewage sludge because it's good fertilizer, and so that's improving the water clarity. That otherwise you'd be muddying up the water. But then there's also a lot of organic matter in the sewage, and so it's essentially there's composting happening, and if the composting happens in the river, it's going to consume the oxygen, and that's going to potentially kill the fish. And so what you're wanting to do is compost the organic material at the wastewater treatment plants. And just like you'd aerate your compost pile, they're bubbling, oxygen up through the wastewater and helping to encourage the microbes that can break down some of that organic matter. So that's kind of the main thing that happens in sewage treatment. And I've seen a few different systems. There's lots of different ways to do it. So sometimes it might be a big lagoon with a sort of a long buoy across the lagoon that has bubbles in it, or it might be a small chamber with little pipes that are bubbling water up. So there's different ways to do it, but that's kind of the main thing that's happening. And so, a lot of the bacteria is going to get sort of, and any other disease-causing organisms are going to get broken down as microbes are doing their work to decompose that organic matter. But there's still quite a bit that makes it through. And normally, like if you have a swimming pool, or if in a drinking water treatment plant, you can kill bacteria by using chlorine. But you can't do that with wastewater because the chlorine would kill the fish once you release it into the river. So, for a while, I think some communities used to use chlorine and then kind of realized that was a problem and backed away from it. And so more recently have been using ultraviolet light because that sort of, what's the word? Sterilizes some of the microbes. And so, ultraviolet, was that the question? Oh yeah, so that's what the disinfection system does, is it's running after the initial, treatment, it's running it past a bank of ultraviolet light, sterilizing it, and that does a really good job. I have some data from after it's gone through that process, and it's now, it's gone from in the thousands of E. coli counts, and the standard is 100, and then it gets down to less than 10. So, so they do a good job.
So there's a couple of questions here about, is it UV light only, and is there a normal flora in the water that is destroyed by UV lights, as well as the bacteria that you're hoping that you're disinfecting?
And I guess, this is water that's coming out of the sewage treatment plant. So I don't know if normal.
I don't think it would be, if I could
Yes,
speak
please
for a
do.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would be at all affecting the stream water itself, because the UV treatment is over with before the water returns to the stream. And
Good point.
yeah, it's the beauty of the UV is that there are no byproducts as there were with chlorine, and that makes it makes the stream a healthier place because of not carrying the high levels of E. coli into the stream, which is one of the things that our bedfish has been subjected to by the village of Oregon. And they're starting a plant rebuild, which is going to include UV. So within a year or so, it's going to be a lot healthier stream. It's going to be a lot lower in the E. coli department.
And you can get the benefits of ultraviolet light with ponds and reservoirs. Actually, we see a lot lower E. coli levels, down in the downstream of dams, and a lot of that is because light is you're slowing down the water, and then light is penetrating it and sterilizing some of the bacteria, and you can get some bacteria reduction benefits from various kinds of stormwater ponds or sediment basins.
Or beaver dams help.
Beaver dams, yes, one of the many benefits of beavers.
Right. Right. There was a question earlier on, just a minute, let me see if I can find it. Oh, and Carolyn, and before I go any further, saying this is a fantastic use of citizen science. and others who agreed with her. Was Project Aware the entity that cleaned out the trash on your river, Dan? Or do I remember that you've had a Project Aware team there recently?
So I'm wearing my Project Aware T-shirt. I just came off the Lower Skunk River. So this was down. We start near Richland and end at Augusta. But there's been some other groups up in the Ames area. So my actually my biology teacher in college, Jim Colbert, organized what they called the Skunk River Navy. So he would get all his students out in a flotilla of canoes, and we'd load up the canoes with trash. And so that was many years running, and I actually got a chance to join them on their last hurrah as an adult when I moved back. So and my organization has organized some kind of smaller scale trash cleanups in partnership with the city of Ames and with Story County and the Skunk River Paddlers. And so we will usually do one or two trash cleanups in the Ames area each year.
Annually, are you saying?
Yeah.
Or
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
really? Okay, that's wonderful. Carolyn has another one, and then we'll go to Mary Ellen's question about chlorine. But Caroline says, here in southeast Minnesota, our rural stream health can be severely impacted by challenging livestock agriculture. I assuming that you mean either cows in the stream or hog confinements. I'm not sure which, Caroline, so maybe you can help us there. Leaky wells, not to mention karst topography. Now we know about karst topography because of the trout streams and up by Elkader and the driftless water defenders, which is probably another one of the presentations that Christine has planned for us. But do you bump into those factors in your work, either you, Lynn, or Dan?
In the Badfish watershed, we don't have karst topography. It's right on the edge of the driftless areas, right, but it's over into the glaciated part. We do have a little bit of agriculture in the watershed, but we don't have. There are very few animal units, as they express it in the water quality world there, and so we don't experience that. Our sources of E. coli are the sewage treatment plants.
Okay, thank you. And Dan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, we don't have karst topography in the Skunk River watershed, but we do have large swine and poultry confinement operations in the headwaters of the Skunk River. Actually, so one of the the interesting things is occasionally at the site just below the wastewater treatment plant where the city of Ames monitors. I know one time they were monitoring, and on one side of the river there was the effluent coming in, and on the treated effluent, and on the other side there was this plume of brown water coming from a drainage ditch, and upstream I think there were several feedlots. So it was sort of this illustration of we can do all this work at the treatment plants to improve things, but if agriculture isn't doing its job as well, then the water's still going to be polluted. So I've done some analysis of kind of what some of the different influences are, and that's a whole separate presentation. But it seems that wastewater is maybe a little bit more important than we had previously thought for E. coli, partly because there are some communities that still aren't required to do the disinfection step. Also because we have some cities like Ames where there's a lot of aging infrastructure, and we have run into situations where there's been leaks in a sewer pipe, and you can have issues with septic systems as well. So I think that what I found is that E. coli is maybe we should be paying more attention to those things, but then on the nutrient side, so things like nitrate um, and phosphorus, animal agriculture can have a really big impact. And I just came back from Lake Darling, where the lake looked like a kale smoothie, and pretty sure a lot of that has to do with manure runoff.
Thank you. And Christine, actually, I was surprised that Dan wasn't talking about what I had seen before. It was a nice surprise, but we may want to think about the keys presentation that you did for the RRWA. I think we may even have that on tape, and we may want to share it with some people about your talking about E. coli and how animal confinements do make a difference in water quality. But we'll leave that for another time. I see Christine's given us the driftlesswaterdefenders.com. Do you want to mention, Christine, about that, or shall we save that to the last?
Well, we can save it just as part of our announcements.
Okay, and then
Um,
Mary Ellen has one last one, and then we'll do announcements. And I understand that Dale wants to talk to us for a minute or two too. So we'll let that wait for just a second. Mary Ellen has public drinking water that smells of chlorine, especially in the spring. So obviously her local public drinking water is coming somewhere where they need to disinfect with chlorine. And that she's filling open jugs of water and letting them stand because the chlorine kills the houseplants. She's asking, how does disinfecting with chlorine work?
And I'm afraid I can't answer that question, but I know it is something that that uh, utilities struggle with. I think I remember talking with the public works director in Roland, Iowa, and about this issue of trying to get it right so that you're removing the bacteria but not having chlorine taste or chlorine byproducts, and yeah. So I don't know the details, but I know it's something that they're always tweaking their systems and trying to, and something that they think about.
Good, thank you. I don't have anything more. Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you unless we've got any last minute questions. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you, Dan and Lynn, for helping us out there.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just amazed how much we learn every time we have these great presenters on, and they just have a wealth of knowledge. And we've had programs on before, and Caroline, oh, go ahead and mute. There we go. Got an echo going on. Caroline, do you want to just share a little bit about the Austin project with the E. coli, the identification between the animals and human waste, that project that you were involved with UMRI and the Austin group?
Sure, just for 1 minute. Let's see if I can remember and also not lose us in the process. In the Ike's chapter, the Izaak Walton chapter in Austin, Minnesota, which is a modest town, I guess west of where I live a little bit, not quite the Driftless, but very much impacted by karst topography. They, several years ago, the chapter has a conservation group and a large and robust group of volunteers took to water sampling on the hunch that there were indeed well leakage and livestock issues, manure getting into drinking water supplies. And they used a protocol that did DNA testing, Lynn, not unlike what you were explaining to us about, to determine
Yes.
not just that there was E. coli, but where the source of it was from human. I think they also narrowed it down to swine and hog, or sorry, swine and cattle. And the distinction was important because Austin is in Hormel country. And so the group wanted to be able to go to the county with some very good science, not with just a blanket accusation about the need to do something different at both the water treatment level and also at the um, private well certification and testing and building level as well. And the long and the short of it is that with very patient, way more patient than I am, and quiet determination, they have been really effective at closing some of the loopholes in well construction and in what happens when you sell a property with a well. You cannot just grandfather that old well in. If you sell it to a family member, it has to go through an inspection process. And the chapter continues to work with the county on private well in neighborhoods, if you will, being annexed into the city and therefore brought onto mains, and trying to find funds to help private well owners fix their wells, either to cap them and dig a new well or to otherwise line them differently. So it's another example, a fabulous example of using citizen collected science to quietly but very persistently make improvements at the water treatment level.
And Caroline, it affected the septic systems as well, right? There were troubled, there were some faulty septic systems as well that were leaking into the watershed area
There
too?
were, and I think if I remember right, Christine, so correct me, and Dale, you might remember also, is that part of the problem was that there was a grandfathered in clause that allowed people to transfer property to family members and therefore bypass the septic system inspection or upgrade, and that some of those loopholes have been closed. Probably not as many as some of us would like, but some loopholes have been closed, and that's a really good thing. Yeah. Yeah. It is a really big problem in Minnesota, which is why Dan and Lynn, I asked the question about private wells and septic systems, which I didn't include, but um, rural landowners, farmers, and all the rest of us who live on our own water lines and our own septic systems are responsible in Minnesota for both testing our systems and upgrading them on our own time and dime when land transfers. And that process at the county level can take an inordinate amount of time. And it means that there are an awful lot of old septic systems and not very good wells floating around out here. And it has a really serious detrimental impact on drinking water quality, among other things, including fish. If you don't care about humans, then if you care about fish, it has a negative impact on fish habitat as well. So we're working on that at a few levels, including with an EPA request for intervention, which is what Iowa has just submitted as well in April. And we submitted ours in April of a year ago, and the EPA accepted that request for intervention. And so we are in the process of persistently banging down the doors of the state agencies that are in charge of drinking water.
And I don't know if we will have time to probably running out of time, but I do just want to mention there is some interesting work happening in Madison, among other places, with sort of realizing that you can't be in silos, and that that these, so we have a wastewater treatment plant realizing that the most effective way they can control phosphorus is by partnering with upstream dairy farms and installing manure digesters. And so some kind of interesting overlaps and parallels. And
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that for just a moment. The Yahara Winds program is a partnership to do adaptive management to control phosphorus. And that's part of Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District. And what it does is it, instead of well, they have phosphorus control, phosphorus removal in the first 2 stages, but not the third one, which is the most expensive, and they aren't going to do that. But they also do this adaptive management where they pay farmers to use conservation methods that are known to reduce the amount of phosphorus that goes into the watershed. And it's been effective. They're on their 5th year, and they're finding that they're able to do a pretty good job of lowering the phosphorus levels, not to the level that they'd like to, but they're making progress. And that's by working with the farmers in the watershed.
That's fantastic, Lynn. I was just curious because both you and Dan's work obviously entails data, and sometimes this is an alarm. People don't like to see the data that's associated with some of these projects. Has your experience been like receptive? It's just like with this Austin group initially, when they saw the data, they were like, ugh, it's a problem with the septic systems and large numbers of human waste that was causing the majority of the problem. And initially, I think this group was thinking it was the animal confinements, but it ended up to be more of a human issue. And then I understand initially some of the local people that were running the utilities were a little upset about, like, okay, but initially they were upset, but then at the end of the day, I guess then they started working together and finding solutions of grants to help mitigate some of the septic systems that needed to be updated and so forth. I was just curious if you guys had a good experience, or has it been kind of challenging because sometimes you do have numbers that people don't want to see.
Lynn, do you want to address that?
Yes, I would like to. I think that Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District has been receptive to a point, and they also are obligated to their ratepayers, and so adding additional treatment means the rates are changed. It may be small change, but increasing the amount of UV treatment of the effluent was meant going from 6 months to 9 months of the year, and they could definitely handle that. They have a $42 million budget per year, so all they had to do was operate their UV system 3 more months of the year, and that made a difference. We found that we did a follow-up study from our original 2-year study, and the numbers have gone down significantly since they increased the number of months that they're doing it. And we're confident that or the Village of Oregon is going to prioritize putting in UV treatment with their facility upgrade in the coming year. And so I'd say yes, we can work with them if we push.
That's good. But it is because of the citizens' science effort, and so that's great to know.
Yeah,
That's
and
what our
I was going to say in Story County, we've had really good partnerships with the city of Ames, and then the city of Nevada, and some of the smaller communities have also been kind of on our working group. So we've had yeah, we've had, it's been very helpful to have the partnership of some of those utility folks on our water monitoring team and get that perspective. So, and the city of Ames
That's great.
provides laboratory services for us. So,
That's great. I just want to do a little plug for the Izaak Walton League Save Our Streams program. You know, it's a 50-year-old program, and this is the 100th year of the Upper Mississippi River Refuge, which protects the Upper Mississippi River. Without that, we would not have the Upper Mississippi River as we know it. And I want to thank Dan, because he's a big advocate of our Save Our Streams program. And Ames has the most, Story County has the most amount of data in the system next to the Greene County folks with the Panora Conservation Chapter. And so I was looking pretty good. Anything else, Dan? I wanted to give Dale a couple of minutes to plug anything that he'd like to do. And Kate Hansen just put in a link with our Save Our Streams program. Thank you, Kate. And she's also our National Agriculture Director. We're thrilled to have her on board with us this evening as well.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, I was just going to add, we've got Save Our Streams, we've got Nitrate Watch, which is specifically looking at nitrate, and then we've got a Salt Watch program too. So that website has a lot of great information if anyone's interested in dipping some strips.
Great.
I guess maybe just one last thing to add is one thing you really notice with the I analyze and report on that citizen science data, and one thing we really notice is kind of the influence of weather and how things shift when you go from a dry year to a wet year. So in 2021 and 2023 especially, we were in severe droughts, and we're really noticing that the spots where we were seeing high phosphate and chloride levels were downstream of community wastewater treatment systems. But then now this year we got plenty of rain, and then now we're seeing the influence rural watersheds really having high nitrate levels and high turbidity, and so things can really shift, and so it maybe different pieces at different times of under different conditions. So.
That's fantastic. Dale, do you want to make a few comments?
Yeah, excuse me, I'll be real short.
Okay.
Lynn, I appreciate your efforts with the DNR up there in Wisconsin. I mean, the data you collect and the data you present to them, along with working with Madison's sewage system, really shows what a citizen can do or a group can do to get government to kind of see the way, because we only have so much water that we can drink, and if it's not good water to drink or good water to swim in or fish out of, it doesn't do anybody any good, and it just degrades the whole natural systems that we have in our country. And then Dan, as far as ditto with you, as far as Ames go, the Izaak Walton League Iowa Division donates to the Project to Wear, so that you can have those nice T-shirts and also the food and stuff that you need when you're working your trash removal. I think it's all good stuff. I was going to mention what Kate mentioned, which is fine. The Izaak Walton League stream monitoring system is well entrenched. We have SOS, we have nitrate watch kits that you can request if anybody on this call, this Zoom wants to get those. You can get those as well through the Izaak Walton League. Those are free for many people. So I just want to thank everybody for showing up today. And I mean, we had a good crowd, a lot of good questions, and I look forward to seeing some of you down the road.
Thank you so much, Dale. I do want to do a plug for the Driftless Water Defenders. They're having their second gathering on the 11th in Elkader, Iowa. I did put that down in the chat box. I'll go ahead and put it down again. It's a fabulous organization that just got started last month, and Chris Jones is leading that with Jim LaRue. And this is the water of the driftless area, which needs to be protected. And their whole thing is, if we can't save the best waters that we have in Iowa, which are badly contaminated at this point, and wells along that area are as well, then, you know, what can we do? And just like the Izaak Walton League, I'm going to put another plug in for the Izaak Walton League. 100 years ago, the Will Dilg, the founder of the league, you know, initiated the refuge, which protects that upper Mississippi River. And it's all because of citizens getting together, along with 2 million women just a couple of years after they were legal to vote, advocated to protect that area. And we need to do that kind of a movement again. So I just really want to encourage everybody to continue to support people like Lynne and Dan and others on, you know, this Zoom. Chris Henning and several others in Greene County have been super active, and so forth. So I also want to thank everybody for taking time this evening to, you know, pop in on one of your summer evenings. We appreciate that very much. And so we will, if anybody else has any last minute questions. Okay, Lynne and Dan, thank you so much again. And Kate, thank you for popping in. Chris, thank you for co-hosting. And thanks to everybody else that's joined us this evening. And we'll look forward to seeing you again. We'll keep you posted.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Christine.
Yep, thank you so much. Have a beautiful week.